Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
You gotta be confident about your Achilles when you show up.
Yeah, I mean, I got him at
Chris
Hearing
Dowhouse,
about Mr. Pointless and fantasy
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to win. Be great and dominate.
Well, all right. Welcome back into another episode of Operation Domination. Your host, Dan Mader, here with you. Thanks for tuning in live on FF Advice Network, on your social media feeds, Twitter and Facebook. Guess what? I'm also on Blue Sky now, guys. Go follow Dan Mader FF on Blue Sky. You can find me there too. Hopefully, they'll get that platform so we can stream live to there soon. And one thing that Twitter has not been able to do, which has been kind of nice, maybe get some questions through there. Wink, wink. You want to get better in Twitter? That's how you do it, guys. But I digress. Operation Domination, always available to you in your favorite podcast app. It's Thursday, so it is time for Injury Inquiry episode. I'm kind of happy to say that it's not as extensive of a list as it has been the past few weeks, but still some key names that we got to talk about. So help me introduce our guest. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. He's the #1 medical expert in all of fantasy sports. The one, the only, Dr. Brian Scott. Pretty sure the neighbors of this hotel that I'm recording from probably heard me on that one. I brought the pipes on that one. Brian, how's it going, man? But they're not injured, right? Shocker. Say? So that's what we're coming to you for. We want the medical analysis. That's- Speaking of that advice. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, so it's a little tough for Tank Bigsby. He has not practiced yesterday, didn't practice today, dealing with an ankle issue. What do you got on Tank Bigsby? Well, I mean, from your determination, this is the way I'm reading it too. It's at least not a high ankle sprain, right? You wouldn't make that assumption? Yeah, and here's the thing about Tank Bigsby. He hasn't been really relevant since that London game when Travis Etienne went out and he went off for that one matchup. And then that was pretty much about it. We thought he'd be able to turn it into something, but the Jacksonville's been so bad it hasn't mattered. If you've hung on to Travis Etienne this entire time, first of all, my hat's off to you. I don't know how you would have done that. But if you had, he should be getting a healthy volume of work. This isn't a situation where when Travis Etienne came out, Dearness Johnson worked in a significant amount. Travis Etienne is trusted in the passing game. I'm not saying Dearness Johnson is not going to get worked in. He is. But Etienne should be looking at a similar-ish target share or utility share in general that we've seen him have in the past. Now, don't necessarily love the matchup this week either, but if you're pressed for a flex, Etienne should have enough volume where he can at least service you there. It still hasn't been great by any stretch of the means, but right now, running backs with volume, especially this week and next week with the buys being so strong in week 11 and week 12, you may have to force to put him in that way. At least he's getting enough volume to maybe help you out in that sense. But when we move on to another running back in Aaron Jones, he's dealing with a rib issue. Now, this looked really bad at first, but then he came back and played. Yes, that's very good news because we can't afford, at least I can't afford an Aaron Jones injury. I want to make a correction to myself too for Travis. Travis Etienne also himself has a bye in week 12, but for this week, if you need to squeeze him because of bye, you can. All right, moving on here to Isaiah Pacheco. Now, if I'm reading the comments from Andy Reid, it sounds like they're not looking at this week as the return, but he is back at practice. It is a big match against the Buffalo Bills, but Kansas City's also undefeated. Now, you could say, like, well, they want to keep that undefeated going as long as they possibly can. Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's true. But at the same time, the Chiefs are looking for a three-peat. So if they're trying to play it safe with Pacheco, I could see them sitting out. But let's say he practices in full on Friday. Again, we're recording this Thursday night. I think it'd be kind of be hard to leave him out in a game like this, at least entirely anyway. You're right. In one sense, even if he does come back this week, even if he does come back next week, I don't think he's going to have a full workload. Kareem Hunt's going to get worked in at least for now until we see what Pacheco can do, because I don't think we're expecting Pacheco to be full, speed ahead his first week back either. So I would expect Kareem Hunt to get worked in a little bit there. But if Pacheco comes back, especially against Buffalo, he's at least a top 24 running back. Even if he comes back next week in week 12, he'd be a top 24 running back when he does return. Just maybe don't expect the upside RB1 levels that maybe you were getting previously. Now, another running back we have to talk about. This one popped up today on the injury report, which was kind of weird. But Jalen Warren listed with a back issue and didn't practice today as a result to that. Yeah, and that was another one that was kind of conflicting. Like, Tomlin was never seemingly worried about the Najee Harris injury, but it seemed like reporters around him were a little bit more concerned. But the fact that he practiced in full on Thursday, he's gonna be good to go for sure. If Warren does miss, it could be a godsend for Najee Harris owners, because I don't know how excited, despite how good Harris has been, especially over the last 4 games. Because even last week, even though it was 21 for 53, he still scored you a touchdown. 3 weeks previous to their bye, he went over 100 yards. As good as he's been, You're going against the Baltimore Ravens team that is the toughest against the run as far as rushing yards per play allowed. This is a team you throw on. It's not a team you can run on. So if Warren can't go, all the extra volume goes to Najee Harris. That could at least establish the floor that you're hoping to get out of Harris this week in what is a tough matchup. Now, I have a little tidbit here for people who are trying to going back and forth. Is Najee Harris a top 24 running back? Is he more of a flex play? Do you want to start him or sit him because of the tough matchup? The Steelers have done a good job of kind of shifting their philosophy where they're starting to run more outside the tackle, more gap scheme as a result to that. Most teams, for whatever reason, have tried to attack the Ravens up the middle. 56% of the time, they've had inside runs against them. They're stout up the middle. I do think they're a little bit more susceptible if you attack them off tackle, which is what the Steelers have been doing about 55% of the time. So I do think it's a little bit interesting there where Harris might give you a better game than you were anticipating anyway. And maybe the extra added volume with Jaylen Warren, we'll have to wait and see. We go to Tyreek Hill. Now, I know Tyreek Hill has been playing through this entire time, and I know it hasn't cost him any time, but I thought it was interesting that we find out he has a torn ligament in his wrist. And runs the risk, I would imagine, of re-aggravation at any point during a game as well. And that's the part you have to worry about. But look, this is not an excuse, and this is kind of why I brought this up. This is not an excuse to why Tyreek Hill has not been Tyreek Hill, even with Tua Tagovailoa back. This Miami Dolphin offense is flat out broken, and I pointed that out. I go back to yesterday's show because I did a whole long thing to deep dive into the Dolphins offense when I was talking about Jalen Waddle. Spoiler alert, is my bust for the week. So make sure you go back and watch our week 11 preview on Operation Domination Football or listen on your favorite podcast app. So I went to a whole thing about this, but that offense is just flat out broken in the passing attack. Everything's within the 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. And that's what's making Tyreek Hill suffer, not necessarily the injury, although I'm sure that does not help. Speaking of wrists, we got the Buffalo brothers still on the injury report. What do you got? Yeah, Buffalo's real banged up going into this game. We're going to talk a little bit more about Dalton Kincaid in a second. I do want to say this. Amari Cooper finally came out and talked about the injury a little bit, and especially for this week in particular, and kept saying that it actually is starting to feel a lot better. And he seems optimistic this week that he'll be able to go. Look, we usually don't listen to players, but that's the first time he said something like that where he felt optimistic about playing for this upcoming week. So it must be feeling better. So I do think Amari Cooper is going to be back. Even if he is, I still have Khalil Shakir a little bit ahead. I think he's a safer matchup, especially this week against Kansas City. It's a little easier to attack them over the middle than it is with the perimeter wide receiver anyway. So Cooper's going to get into my top 36 as a low-end wide receiver 3, but that's about, I think, all you can ask for right now out of Amari Cooper. Keon Coleman, we'll wait and see what happens with him. I think we finally might be getting the return of Nico Collins this week. Do you think so, Bri? Well, and this should be a good example of a team that really waited because he practiced listed at least practiced in full last week. Like we thought there was good. We there was no reason in my mind if he was practicing full multiple days why he didn't go last week. So this is a team that really wanted to make sure, I guess, that he's 100% before he returned. We had a little quick question come in here. Half point PPR, Cooper Cup or McLaurin trying to make the decision right now. Guess what? It's Cooper Cup. It's a bad matchup here for Terry McLaurin, even though he might do well, but it's still not a great matchup. The Eagles have actually been the best pass defense over the last 4 weeks, really back to their week 5 bye since they come out of it. They've been better than the Chiefs and the Broncos against perimeter wide receivers in that time. So go Cooper Cup there. All right. So switching back to our wide receivers who are dealing with injuries, T. Higgins. Quad injury. Are we getting closer to a return for T. Higgins? He was, in fact, limited again today. The progression is that he's finally practicing because he wasn't practicing at all up until this point. To your point, though, especially T. Higgins and soft tissue injuries, yeah, I'm with you. Until we see him in full, I don't know if I'm trusting that we're actually going to see him play. Yeah, he's so good when he's on the field, but so often not on it. And that game's a Sunday night game. So if you were trying to wait around because you're hoping against hope, you better have an option that Sunday night or Monday night game. Otherwise, I would not take the chance on T. Higgins if we don't get word beforehand. Michael Pittman, we did get some good news as far as his health at least is concerned with his back issue this week. Well, he may look physically better. The bad news is that Anthony Richardson is back to being the quarterback and back to being the quarterback for the rest of the season, and that's the bad news for him. That's the bad news for Josh Downs. Again, go back and watch or listen to our Week 11 preview because we did a whole barrage, especially with Adam being a Colts fan, on what that meant for the Colts wide receivers moving forward here with Anthony Richardson back in the fold. As bad as Joe Flacco's been, at least Josh Downs was able to be fantasy relevant. Now it's going to be question mark as far as that goes. So Pittman's still on your benches, but maybe you don't quite drop him just yet because he is healthy, and we'll have to see. Maybe Richardson actually developed in the 2 weeks he had off, like Shane Steichen wants you guys to believe because he thinks we're all idiots. DK Metcalf, knee issue. Do we think we're getting him back this week? Yeah, and if he's back in the line, if he's back For the Seattle Seahawks in the lineup, he's in your lineup 100%. We know what DK Metcalf can do on one play. A match against San Francisco, not the best matchup in the world, but this is still a player that should be a top 18 at minimum. A wide receiver I have in my top 14 actually heading into this week. Geno Smith has severely missed having that vertical deep threat down the field. So make sure DK Metcalf is in your lineups if he is in fact good to go, which we expect him to be. Now, how about this? George Kittle, hamstring irritation is the way Kyle Shanahan put this one, just to let you know how really minor he thinks it is. He did, by the way. He did. He was, yeah, he returned today. It's good news because George Kittle has not only been the number one tight end for the year thus point. This is a great match against Seattle. I mean, this is like it's first of all, George Kittle has a history of lighting up Seattle as it is. So does Brock Purdy, but Kittle has had multiple touchdown games against the Seattle Seahawks in his career, and they haven't been able to stop the tight end all year. So you want this game here for George Kittle, and it looks like you are going to get it. Don Kincaid. Now, with all these weapons out for Buffalo, or at least banged up, you're hoping finally a match against Kansas City Chiefs, who haven't been able to stop any tight ends all year. Maybe this is the week Kincaid goes off. And now he's dealing with a knee issue. What a disappointment he's been. I mean, guy was supposed to be his breakout year, potentially even the top target of Josh Allen heading into the season. And I mean, he's been targeted. Like his target share is not terrible, sitting at 19%, but it's just not what we were hoping for out of Dalton Kincaid, and looking like he could be trending more towards the bust side than not. Sam LaPorta, another very disappointing tight end. This guy was drafted as number one tight ends in some drafts. Now he's dealing with a shoulder issue. Yeah, and even if we did, I mean, at this point, I know it's a heavy bye week, but LaPorta's been a back end tight end one streamer territory tight end anyway for most of this year. If there's an option like a Taysom Hill still available on your waiver wire, that could be an option you can potentially go with. Things Tucker Craft coming off a bye, things of that nature. It's just been rough. Now, if he's out, then that's one less mouth to feed potentially for Amon-Ra St. Brown, for Jameson Williams. But I also worry about them being able to just run the ball down the Jackson Jaguars' throat this entire week too. So, I mean, Jared Goff's like the guy's not throwing more than 24 times a game right now. Like it's just not a lot to eat. It's not Sam LaPorta's fault. There's just not a lot to eat right now in the passing game because they've run the ball so effectively, and he's been efficient when he's passed that they just haven't had to pass a lot. They haven't been trailing in any of these games. That's been the big. And I don't expect them to trail in this game either. So. Yeah, if you have LaPorta, he's a borderline tight end one right now. Anyway, just given the under usage. But that actually does it. That's our whole list of that shorter episode. I told you it wasn't as many injuries this week, partly due to the buys, partly because maybe guys are finally starting to stay healthy in the second half of the season, knock on wood. But Brian, as always, man, thank you for coming on. What do you got going on? What do you want people to check out? That is awesome. We actually Fantasy Football Advice Network. We shared a booth right next to them. They were the second booth to us at the expo, and it was a lot of fun getting to see these helmets and talking with them. And oh yeah, it's really a customized helmet. Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to get one of those. The helmet just makes the football. Something about the helmet just speaks to you from the football. I don't know what it is. Something about a beautiful helmet. Yeah, you petting it, you're just petting it nicely, just like, oh, good boy, good boy. That's awesome. That's awesome. You can catch Operation Domination live every single Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification, or catch us after on your favorite podcast app when you download Operation Domination Football and leave a 5-star review to help out the show. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Good luck. We're in the nitty gritty. We're into the playoff races. So make sure you win, and we'll help you out along the way. We'll see you next time. Hey there. I want to thank you for watching Operation Domination today. And if you're enjoying the show, there are some ways you can help support us. You can go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination and leave us a 5-star review. And you can do this on any podcast platform or on our YouTube page when you go to @FF Advice Network. This completely helps out the show be able to grow, and also leave us comments to let us know how we can curtail the show to you, because you are the most important member of the show. So again, go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination to leave a 5-star review and leave a comment wherever you listen or watch the show, and we'll help better serve you.